Okay. Is it working?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, we're almost 4:10, so let's start. Hello, everyone. I'm the co-founder and CTO here at Instabug. And today we're going to talk about monitoring your mobile app performance and how you could make sure that you're doing more than just the basics. So we're going to talk about like the stability and monitoring the stability and the performance of mobile apps. Before we get into this, let me just give you a quick brief about what we do at Instabug. So at Instabug, we work with more than 25,000 apps to improve their mobile app performance and stability. We do that through our three main products, which is bug reporting, crash reporting, and performance monitoring. But we didn't start by doing all of that. So our product has been evolving as the mobile ecosystem has been evolving. So back then, when we were starting to work on Instabug, performance meant only one thing. It was only about crash-free sessions. It was the only thing that was impacting your app rating, and it was the only thing that that can affect your App Store reviews. But now, everything has changed. So when you look at like the current ecosystem, you will see that like user expectations has changed, operating systems has changed, competition have changed, and the App Store rules have changed as well. So for example, when we look at the user expectations, so while your users might previously have been okay with like an app that is like consistently showing spinners all over the app, now they will think that this is too slow, and like overall like their threshold for frustration is getting much lower than it used to be before. So while your users might have been okay with your app consuming a lot of battery, even if the app wasn't doing as much, now 36% of your users will stop using the app if it's consuming too much battery while it's running. And same thing about like the stability of the app. So while your users might have tolerated your app if it's like if it's doing the main its main job, now 80% of your users are going to uninstall the app if they faced a crash or two during the first time that they're starting to use the app. So basically, there is very low tolerance for performance and stability issues across your user base. And as a result of this, the operating systems are reacting accordingly. So when you look at the operating systems, while they might have been okay with like an app that is using too much memory or too much battery or too much CPU, now actually the operating system is proactively going to terminate your app if it's misbehaving. And by misbehaving, it could be like if it's using too much resources, the OS is actively going to kill the app in order not to drain the resources on the device. And that's because there are a lot more alternatives than it used to be before. So while previously, like back in 2012, there was around 500,000 apps that were actively maintained. Now there is at least 10x that. So if your app isn't performing, competition is just like one click away. And the same when it comes to the customer acquisition. So like the main source of customer acquisition through the App Store, the main way that the App Store have been previously ranking the apps and like optimizing for like the search the App Store searching. Previously, it was only based on the app name, the keyword, and the subtitles. And everyone was doing the same trick of using like a very long name in which like you're using all of the keywords that your users might be using while they're searching for your app. Now the App Store is actually using a lot more parameters to decide like how the app is going to rank on the App Store, including many technical ones as well, including things like app hangs, including latencies, including resource usage, and including the app footprint. And hence, like the performance is now heavily impacting your search ranking, which is like a big part of your business. So a big part of your business is now being impacted by the performance and the stability of the app. And in 2022, we now need to redefine the quality of the app as performance and stability. We cannot only depend on stability as we used to do before. And we've got a few metrics to measure those quality and like the performance and the stability of the app, which are the app launch, screen loading, UI responsiveness, network performance, as well as the crashes and the fatal hacks. And in order to say, like, if you have like a new build that you're pushing to the App Store, for you to be able to say that like this is a high quality build, you need to make sure that you're tracking all of those metrics. Let's start with app launch and get into it in more details. So starting with app launch, the app launch is the time that it takes for your app to launch and to become responsive. It's obviously like one of the most important things for you to optimize when it comes to the stability and the performance of the app, because it is the first impression, it is the first thing that your users encounter while they're using the app, and it is one of the main contributing factors when it comes to App Store optimization. So if you're optimizing for like a good ranking on the App Store, you need to make sure that you're tracking your app launch very closely. And we classify the app launch into 3 types. So there is the cold app launch, the warm app launch, and the hot app launch. And we classify them based on like the starting point of the app launch. Different companies might be using different definitions for those app launches, but like some companies use a definition in which like it is the time for the process to initialize, the application on create, and the first activity on create. However, a better definition for this is the time to interactive, which is like the total time for you from the time that like the user clicks on the app icon till the time that it actually starts to accept events, and like the time that it starts to be interactive. So this includes the time that like the OS takes for like for initializing the app, and the app takes for like to initialize any resources, as well as any content loading that you might need to do at the beginning of the app. So you need to make sure that like you're measuring the right app version for that, and the app launch for that. And if you would like to benchmark your app against the market, we can. And Android Vitals actually gives us some hints about that. So the cold app launch shouldn't be more than 5 seconds, warm app launch shouldn't be more than 2 seconds, and the hot app launch shouldn't be more than 1.5 seconds. So anything more than that, this is going to be like the app is going to be marked as slow, and this is going to be what impacts your app store optimization moving forward. A few tips for optimizing the app launch latency. So first, you need to make sure that you're actually measuring the right app launch. So you need to make sure that you're marking the time that like your app starts to become responsive, because this is what your users will actually perceive. It is the time that they would perceive as the app launch latency of your app. Then you need to make sure that you're breaking it down into phases so that you can identify where exactly the bottleneck is. So you can make sure that like this is where exactly you need to look more and to dig deeper into the app to know where the problem is. Also, it's recommended that you would delay any expensive tasks or network calls and to use caching instead. So you can make sure that you're caching content between the different app sessions. And finally, use baseline profiles to execute the most critical paths within the app. So if there is a specific critical path within the app, you need to make sure that you're using baseline profiles for that. The good thing about this is that if you're using Instabug, you don't need to do that, because that's what we're going to do for you. So we're going to recommend to you the end of the app launch. We're going to show you like the breakdown of the app launch into its different phases, and all of that works out of the box. Next, we're looking at screen loading. And for screen loading, we're doing the same thing that we're doing with the app launch, but for every single screen that you have in your app. And we define it the same way as well. So it is the time that the screen takes to render its activities and fragments, as well as any custom code that you need to do at the time that the app launches. So if there is any resources that you need to request either over the network or from the disk, we also take that into account in like the latency of the screen loading. And some benchmarks about that as well. You need to make sure that you're fitting your screen loading performance within those thresholds to make sure that you're not impacting your user experience. Next is UI responsiveness, which is how the UI performs on every screen within your app. The way that this works is that like on most of our devices, we're running on 60 frames per second. So what this means is that like whenever any frame takes more than 16.67 milliseconds, this means that like the OS is going to drop frames. And by dropping frames, this means that like your users are going to notice that the app is not becoming responsive as it should be. And this is what they call the UI janks. So this is basically whenever the OS is skipping any frames, and whenever it starts to become visible that there is a stutter within the app. Common sources of UI janks are scrollable lists, layout and rendering logic, threading issues, or object allocation and garbage collection. And a few tips on how to optimize that. is to avoid is basically to start by analyzing any frame that is taking more than the threshold of 16.67 milliseconds. So you can make sure that like you're analyzing those frames and you're looking exactly what like where is the CPU spending that time. You can make sure that like you're pushing any logic outside of the UI thread, so that if there is any long-lasting tasks that you're doing, you need to make sure that you're pushing that outside of the UI thread. And finally, you need to make sure that you're including automated stress tests to make sure that you're testing specifically for the scrollable content. You need to make sure that you're testing that for like the extreme cases in which your users might be using the app. Next is the network monitoring. And we break that down into network failures and network latencies. So it's interesting that like many companies that we get to work with, they usually have like very strict monitoring for like the network, very strict network monitoring on the server side, but they don't do as much on the client side. And by doing that, you're actually missing many things. So on the network failure side, server side monitoring doesn't count any client-side timeouts or client-side failures, which is actually very common for mobile apps. So that's why, like specifically when you're building mobile apps, you need to make sure that you're including network monitoring on the client side as well, because if your device is connected to like a not very stable network, you need to make sure that you're monitoring that so that you can capture any client-side timeouts or client-side failures. So while your server might be reporting like 5 nines uptime and like everything is green, your users might actually be seeing a different experience, and your users might be seeing some failures. And same thing with latencies. So if you're only monitoring on the server side, this doesn't count any payload latency or any geolocation latency. So like which could be happening with specifically with mobile apps as well. So if your users are going to be in a specific geolocation, like the round trip of the request isn't going to be counted if you're only monitoring your server your network performance on the server side. A few tips on how to enhance your network performance. So the first one is identifying which requests are the key requests within the app. You shouldn't be treating all of your network requests equally. Some of the network requests could be blocking specific parts within the app, so you need to make sure that you're highlighting that. Then you should be splitting those. It is a best practice to split the big network requests into smaller ones, specifically if they are on a critical path while your users are using the app. Also, it's recommended to use a compression algorithm on the client side and the server side to ensure that you minimize the payload and to make sure that you minimize the latency. And finally, if you know that there is a specific geo in which your users are located, you need to make sure that you're using a CDN that is closer to this geolocation. That's it on the performance side. On the stability, first it is the first thing that we monitor for you is crashes, which is obviously whenever your app is doing an invalid operation or when the OS decides to kill your app. And we bucket them into 3 categories: the app launch crashes, the foreground crashes, and the background crashes, which like obviously all 3 types are very important. You just need to make sure that you're prioritizing them correctly. So the app launch crash, this is like the most critical type of crashes because that's like what all of your users are going to see. Foreground crashes and background crashes comes next. Finally, there is the fatal hangs and the ANRs. And the ANRs are when when the app is hanging for more than 5 seconds, and that's when like the UI thread is being blocked for more than 5 seconds, and then the OS shows a dialog for your users to kill the app. And you should be aiming for no more than 0.47% ANRs in your daily sessions. And that's also recommended by Android Vitals. So like if you're seeing more than that, then this is actually something that you need to look more into. So these are like all of the metrics that we help you track, and these are the things that we track for you. The question is like which of these metrics you need to decide whenever you're looking at a new release. Which of these metrics you need to use to decide which whether this build is stable enough for you to push into production or not. And the answer is all of them. And we help you by aggregating all of that into a single metric. So what we do is that we aggregate all of those metrics for you into a single metric, which is what we call the app appdex. It is a score from 0 to 1 that shows you the overall health of the app. We do that by classifying all of the sessions that we see from your users. We classify them into 4 buckets: the satisfying sessions, the tolerable sessions, frustrating sessions, and crashing sessions. And based on this, we define the appdex by like dividing like the satisfying sessions divided by like all of the sessions that your users are seeing within the app. By doing that, you will get a single metric that shows like the stability of any build that you would have before you're starting to push it into production. So that it then becomes easy for you to decide whether this build is okay to push into production or not based on that score. So you can set like a threshold of like, if it's anywhere less than 0.7%, then this is a build that you don't want to push into production. And you can also see how that changes over time. So you can see you'll be able to see how that changes between the different builds, so that like if you would like to prioritize, to take some time to prioritize fixing performance issues and stop like adding any new features, you'll be able to do that by seeing like how does the appdex score change over time. And one thing that we heard from many of our customers is that like when they get to do like those performance enhancements, they're now making sure that like whatever change that they are going to do is going to be something that your users are actually going to see the difference. So it isn't like some performance changes that you're doing on the side. It is changes that your users are going to notice once the app goes into production. That is it for me. If you're interested in knowing any more tips on how to improve the app performance, or like how you can make sure that you're monitoring the app performance or stability, we've got a lot of things that we've blogged about on our blog. So you can make sure that you check that on our blog, or you could drop by our booth anytime later today or tomorrow. We'll be here tomorrow as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to stop by. That's it. Thank you.